So welcome to you all this evening, and also particularly to members of the public who are sitting at the back of the room. I have a few housekeeping announcements to make. So first of all, fire alarm. On hearing the fire alarm, please make your way to the nearest fire exits, which are clearly marked. Mobile phones. Please could you ensure that your mobile phones are switched off or on silent? Councillors who are using the Modern Gov application to access the document pack for the meeting may continue to use their electronic devices. Members should only use their devices to access council and committee information to limit any distractions from their electronic devices. The meeting is being filmed for live and subsequent broadcast. By entering the council chamber and using the public seating areas, you are consenting to being filmed. If this presents any difficulty, please inform Democratic Services, who are sitting at the end of this row. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and wait for an invitation from the chair. Remember to turn your microphone off when you've finished speaking. Please face the microphone when speaking and speak loudly, clearly, and ensure that you are as close as possible to the microphone. When referring to a specific report or page, please mention the report title, the page or paragraph number, so that all members and also members of the public who are watching this on live stream have a clear understanding of what is being discussed. And then finally, could I ask councillors to remember to collect their post, which may include Christmas cards, from the members' lounge at the close of the meeting if they have not done so already. So, starting on the agenda item 1, apologies. Could I have any apologies for absence? And, I will do that as well, yes. Any apologies for absence, first of all? No? And
I have apologies for Richard Maisie.
Oh, for Councillor?
Councillor Maisie.
Councillor Maisie, thank you. And I've also, just before we start on to the other items, can I just also remind you, could I ask everyone to take out their cards and to reinsert? That will make sure that we are collecting everybody's input in the meeting. And also, yeah. Okay. Right. So, declarations of interest. Yes. Please raise your hand if there are any declarations of interest in any items on the agenda. Councillor Canning.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to raise a declaration of interest in relation to items 14 and 15 for Uberco. That's because I work for Suez, which is another resource and waste management company.
Thank you. Item 3, minutes of the 24th of October 2024. Could I ask you to raise your hands to approve the minutes of that meeting? All those who are in support, and I'm looking there, I think that's unanimous, almost unanimous. Are there any abstentions? No, thank you very much. I can then sign the minutes. Very much. So we now go on to agenda item 4, announcements. I have 2 sad announcements to make. I regret to inform you, sadly, John Jeffries, who is a previous district councillor, has passed away. John was elected in 2000 for the Nailsworth district ward. During his time in office, he served as cabinet member for housing, health and well-being, and leisure and culture. The thoughts of the whole council are with his friends and family this evening, and I wondered if there were any members who would wish to pay any tribute to John in the course of this meeting. Thank you, Councillor Green.
Thank you. I didn't actually know Councillor Jeffries, but I know that most of us here, as Chair of Councillors just said, would offer their deepest condolences to all of his friends and family. So thank you.
Councillor Drew.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I did know John, and we had some interesting discussions over the years. Didn't always see eye to eye, but the thing he was passionate about was actually representing his ward and also this council. And he did feel passionately also about council housing. So it is something, given that he was on the other side of the divide, that I was immensely grateful for. I couldn't attend his funeral, sadly, but I know some of the tenant reps have been in touch with me to say how much they valued his expertise and his involvement. So it just shows that sometimes party politics can be transcended with issues where people are more concerned about the common values that we all share.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Braun.
Thank you, Chair. Just to echo your comments and just to recognise the very long years of service, 11 years that John Jeffries gave to this council and his big contributions as cabinet member over that time. I believe he was a Conservative group and then an independent councillor for the final year. So just like to extend sympathies to his family, as Councillor Green has mentioned. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that might wish to say anything? And I have, again, a further sad news to share the news that Renshaw co-founder and non-executive director Sir David McMurtry has passed away. And I think it's important that we recognise that, because Renshaw's is one of the world's leading engineering and scientific technology companies with expertise in precision measurement and healthcare. And its heart has been in the Stroud district since Sir David and John Deere founded the business in 1973. And Renshaw now employs more than 5,000 people in 36 countries. And the thoughts of the whole council are with his family, friends and colleagues. And I would like to invite any members who may wish to pay tribute to David McMurtry. I don't know if there's anybody particularly from the Wootton Under Edge wards that may want to say something. Oh, Councillor Drew?
Sorry, it's me again. But on this occasion, I am very moved. David wasn't only a genius. He could have saved Rolls-Royce, but they decided that probes were no future. So he came over and set his own company up, Renshaw's, and I think they've done rather better than Rolls-Royce subsequently. He was a man very humble. The thing about David is that he would never talk about his own greatness, even though right to the very end he would be still looking at the designs coming through. He signed them all off into his 80s. And I know they sometimes felt, David, you ought to retire. Sadly, he had a very short retirement before his death. The thing that I also was grateful for, when we hit the problems in 2009, and I managed to get some money to help both Renshaw's and what was then Delphi, he was always very personally indebted to me. And when he needed help with their pension fund, I know I went on a visit there on a Saturday morning to his own home, which again was, because you probably know there's a bit of history about Swinney, that his wife would never move to this wonderful state-of-the-art place. So I went to his home, and it was just interesting to talk to him on a very friendly level. So I am indebted to it. There are very few people that you really feel that you're with greatness when you sit down. But he was there, but he never thought about himself. He always thought about the company, his employees. He hated the City of London. It was the worst decision he said he would ever have made to have gone public with his company, which he said, there are issues about private companies, but in his case, he really did feel that what he wanted to see was British manufacturing, always given the place it should be, which is, the history of the workshop of the world. So I am very sad. I've written to Lady McMurtry just to talk about some of my experiences with him. But I think this council ought to look at a way, he's responsible for thousands of our constituents, thousands. We've got 3 plants in the district. And again, the last thing I'll say is he was forever being chased by the Welsh Development Agency. In the end, he did go over with 1 plant over there, but he kept it here because he said, my loyalty is to the Stroud district. And there are very few people that you can say that about.
Thank you. Councillor Cohen and Councillor Green.
There isn't time really here this evening to do this man justice. We all owe him a great debt. He was a visionary. And he was also a philanthropist in the truest sense of the word. He did so much, not only to improve the prospects of the district, but also to support the community in which he operated. And as I say, the list goes on and on. Small community projects, housing, just the buildings in which he operated. It was always done with the greatest care and real regard. And only about a fortnight before he died, I was at an event at his house, and he was still there hosting events for raising funds for cancer care. And so to the last, he was supporting people in his community, and he was the biggest, they were the biggest private employers in the county, and we owe him a great debt.
Thank you. Councillor Green.
I completely echo what everyone else has said, and I think just following on as well, the work that him and his company have done as well for our future engineers as well, the work that he or the company has done with local schools and STEM days. My own children have just been to one very recently, just last week. So I think we all massively owe him a huge debt of gratitude, and yes, my huge condolences to everyone that has ever been touched by this man who, I don't think I need to say it, is just irreplaceable.
Thank you. Councillor Braun.
Thank you. As one of the 3 ward members for Wootton Under Edge and North Liberal and Stinchcombe, and I'm sure for Kingswood as well, Sir David McMurtry played a huge role, as Renishaw does, in all of our lives. I met him on a few occasions as well. One time it was at the Swinhay when there was an event being hosted for Ukrainian families who were visiting. Another time it was a kind of bread and soup lunch in the Baptist church. Another time he was talking about his passion for the electric Stirling racing car. He always had a twinkle in his eye. And I think even seeing him in his 80s speaking with such great passion about a brand new engineering project was just fabulous. And I'd only known him for a few years, really. I know so many people across the district have really lasting bonds and friendships with him and his family and the whole of the Renshaw family. I just wanted to say how pleased I was to see all the tributes in the local press to him, and I hope that does give heart to his family and to his colleagues. I note that at Renishaw as well, it's just 1 year older than Stroud District Council, and look how much they created in that time. It's quite incredible. He was certainly a brilliant engineer. He received numerous honours and accolades, both within the UK and internationally. And just to mention the Renishaw Board tributes, which I thought was nice, just to say that Sir David will be greatly missed by so many, including the generations of Renishaw engineers who he inspired and mentored. The manufacturing industry has lost a great innovator, and many at Renishaw have lost a father figure and a friend. And I know many people in our communities will feel that they've lost a friend too. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I therefore invite members to join me in standing for a minute's silence as a mark of respect for John Jeffreys and Sir David McMurtry. Councillors. So can I go on to agenda item 5, public question time? There are no... Oh, I beg your pardon, sorry. I have forgotten to invite Councillor Braun to make any announcements that she has. I'm really sorry, Councillor Braun.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this evening, in terms of announcements relating to the council, I just wanted to make 2 announcements in relation to planning changes and local government changes, and I thought it would be helpful to share those with everybody this evening. So first of all, on the changes to the planning rules, as you will be aware, the government has committed to build 1.5 million new homes over this parliamentary term, which is the equivalent of delivering 370,000 homes a year. And as local planning authorities, we are all expected to play our part. So there are already significant planning reforms within the system, within the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act that was passed last year. And there are new reforms coming along the track with the upcoming Planning and Infrastructure Bill. So the big event last week was the publication of the updated National Planning Policy Framework, or NPPF, which sets out the Labour government's approach to planning and plan making. So the updated NPPF confirms mandatory housing targets and introduces a new method for calculating each district's housing numbers, with higher targets for us and others to meet. There will be transitional arrangements towards these new housing numbers for local plans. And there are also changes to the Green Belt policy, but that doesn't affect us in Stroud District because we don't have any Green Belt. Members will be interested to know that the government is also inviting views on reforming planning committees so that they can get Britain building again. So for us in Stroud District, this update to the NPPF makes it more important than ever that we progress our draft local plan towards adoption so that we've got a very solid foundation to direct new homes and development in a planned way, and to make sure that we secure the vital infrastructure that we need for our communities and businesses. On December the 5th, in line with the planning inspector's request, the council's planning strategy team submitted evidence to demonstrate the plan's soundness, which they've been preparing over the past year in consultation with partners, including the County Council, National Highways and South Gloucestershire Council. So this work was completed during the pause in the examination process, which was granted by the inspectors. We hope to receive a response from the inspectors in the new year about the final stages of the examination of our draft local plan. And as you'll be aware from the council plan, we will be committing time and resources next year to start work on a new local plan to meet the new requirements. So I know members will be really keen to hear more details about these new planning rules and the impact that they'll have on Stroud District. So we will be arranging a briefing session in the new year for all members. Thank you. Just moving on to the changes to local government. As members may have heard this week, there are even bigger changes to the structure of local government on the horizon, and that's proposed by the English Devolution White Paper, which was published on Monday. So, as you may have seen, the government plans to abolish all 2-tier authorities and replace them with unitary councils. There are currently 164 district councils and 21 county councils across the country, so this is bound to have significant impacts. There is also a push for all council areas to have directly elected mayors who will head up a strategic authority. The strategic authority will comprise 3 or more unitary councils. So you'll be aware that there are already some of these metro mayors in more urban areas across the country, and council powers will move from the district and county councils to the new unitary council and new combined authority. The objective is about providing a more consistent approach across the country and allowing all areas to benefit from devolved powers, for example, for local public transport. It's also about reducing the risk of financial failure of councils, given the number of upper tier authorities whose budgets have been really squeezed by service pressures, particularly social care. The white paper also states that reorganisation will deliver efficiency savings and increase local accountability, though we do have to look at the evidence on that and whether bigger is really better. But whatever we think of the English devolution white paper, it's quite clear that we will have to follow it. So councils in two-tier areas like Gloucestershire will be expected to reorganise over this 5-year parliament and the next in a phased approach, with the first new unitary councils expected before the end of this parliament. So the changes will take many years to implement. For Gloucestershire, the most likely outcome seems to be a new unitary council for the entire county. As district and county leaders and chief executives, we met yesterday and expressed support in principle for this approach, though in reality we have very little decision-making power. The government has asked us to make this change, and if we refuse to do so, it can be imposed by the minister. In terms of a future strategic authority, leaders are keen to keep all options open at this stage, though I think we all recognise there is a natural alignment for us with the existing partners in the west of England. I know many members will be concerned about the loss of the districts as the most local level of community service delivery, and the design of the new council will want to make sure that services continue to be provided as close to our residents and businesses as possible. At this stage, we've only agreed in principle to comply with the government requirements to set up a unitary council, and we don't yet have any details about what that will involve or the timescales. The government will formally invite unitary proposals from us in January. You may also be aware that the County Council has decided to ask the Minister to postpone the County Council elections in May so that Gloucestershire can be fast-tracked towards unitary council status. However, since we are only just at the very beginning of starting to think about a unitary council, and many more councils are much further ahead of us in the queue with their devolution proposals, I'm not very clear whether this will succeed. And I think most people would like to see those elections go ahead this next year so that a fresh team can lead the county council through the important next stages. I know this upcoming time of change will be unsettling for all of us, for council staff, for members, for all of our communities and businesses and the partners that we work with day to day. I'm sure that many of us have got a lot of questions about what it means for different services as well. So please do speak to your group leader in the first instance, and together group leaders will collate questions and hopefully we'll start to pull together some answers as we receive more information from the government. The new year should bring news on what will be expected from us and those timelines for change over the coming years. As I mentioned yesterday to the other Gloucestershire leaders, I'm very keen that this process allows for full community engagement and it's shaped by the vision and the values that we set as members for this new authority. I know we will all want to put in place the best possible arrangements to serve our communities, and your input as members representing your communities and helping to shape the future will be needed now more than ever. Thank you.
So can I go on to the public question time? And there are no questions from the public. And agenda item 6, similarly for members' questions, I have no notice of any questions from members. So on to agenda item 7, which are the recommendations from the Strategy and Resources Committee. And the first report is agenda item 7A, which is concerning the Brimscombe Port commercial units. And I'm going to invite Councillor Catherine Braun, Chair of Strategy and Resources Committee, to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. I'm just going to briefly walk you through the report. I'm sure you've all studied it very closely. So this is this evening. We're just looking to decide about whether to purchase the commercial units at Brimscombe Port. You'll be aware that a paper has already gone to the Strategy and Resources Committee that looked at wider issues. So this evening we're just focused on that. There's some helpful information in the report about the background to the Brimscombe Port development. Hoping all members, including recently elected members, are now much more familiar with Brimscombe Port and the many years that this whole work has been in process. And many people, I hope, were also able to attend the community engagement session that was held a week ago, which was with St Modwyn Homes and allowed people to have a look at the proposals that are coming forward from St Modwyn's as our partners. So the issue that we're looking at this evening is really focused on the commercial development, and I'm just going to skip on to the units. So the idea for the council to purchase this, it wasn't originally in the initial output specification, but it's through further engagement with St Modwyn Homes as the developer, and thinking about our role as shaping that new development and the place that it's going to be within Brimscombe Port. So we've already committed to purchase the social housing on the site, and we've been developing opportunities really for the community to use the community facilities on the site as well. As it is noted in the report at paragraph 3.7, this whole development has a real function in terms of placemaking for the wider area, not just Brimscombe and Thrupp, but the whole of the canal corridor. And as the destination at the end of the corridor, it's very important that the commercial units do provide that sense of place and are responsive to the needs of the community that will live at the Brimscombe Port site, and those who are around as well. And having control over that, those commercial units will allow us to decide what kind of facilities we want to have there and be able to let them to organisations and companies which we think will provide a good fit with the vision that we have for Brimscombe Port. You'll be aware that the council already owns and manages a couple of properties nearby, Brimscombe Port Mill and the pub. It's not every council that owns a pub, but it's great to be able to do that. So we have a lot of experience with owning and managing properties in that particular area, as well as much further across the business, the district, sorry. So the units would be let on a commercial basis, and that is required in order to repay the sums that we will be borrowing. And in acquiring the space on a long leasehold interest, the council will be taking on the risk of void periods and consequent outgoings, including bills, rates and service charges for that period. As you'll note in the report, we have given full consideration to the financial impacts, and although there has been some concern about the retail market more generally, the advice that we've received from experts is that the retail market would respond positively to a unique opportunity such as this one. And it could become a central commercial point for the parish and the wider community, as well as for the specific Brimscombe Port development. So a commitment to purchase at this stage, subject to contract, allows us to enter into a contractual agreement as part of a suite of documents that will make up the development agreement to be signed with St Modwyn Homes. It's noted in the report that the development agreement may be signed in December. I think that's now likely to be after Christmas, because there's a lot of legal work that needs to be done, and depending on the decision that we take this evening, this will also need to be drawn up so that can be part of the development agreement. The commitment that we're making as well is limited to the developer's current scheme proposal, and that's subject to planning approval for 263 square metres of space, and any changes that come about as a result of the planning process would have to be considered at that time. So a budget figure of £630,000 will be required to acquire this commercial space. And I'm happy to stop there. Thank you.
Question on the report. Councillor Cook and Councillor Drew.
Thank you, Chair. It's a very quick question, really, in terms of the level of risk that we're undertaking with this particular piece. I mean, Brimscombe Port is a highly exciting development and I think will hold great benefit for Stroud in the future. But it doesn't come without its risks in terms of the commerciality of the project and how tight that is. I suppose my question really is, can you give us some reassurance that of the risk we're putting up with the money that we're putting up for this is controlled, understood, measured and mitigated against? Does that make sense?
Thank you, Councillor Cook. I think I can. I'm sure you've seen the financial implications in the report as well. I know the whole of the Brimscombe Port team have done a lot of thinking about this in terms of the way the finances will be managed over the time, and the way that that's been considered in terms of the borrowing that's required and the capital reserve and the long leasehold interest that we will be taking. I don't know if you've got any specific questions about this, which I'm happy to pass on from a financial perspective, but I can assure you that certainly there have been risks all the way through this project, and the purpose of the council's involvement has been to de-risk the project wherever we can to help it to come forward. Thank you.
I suppose the only specific question that I would have or like to find more about later perhaps is actually when we get to a point where we need to commit to a spend and actually start spending some of this money. As it stands, I think this decision is basically saying we're making a commitment to do that, but there isn't actually any physical spend or little physical spend to come out at this stage. So I just wonder if we got some kind of indication as to when that's likely to start.
If I could ask Andrew Cummins to respond on that point, thank you.
Thank you, Leader. So as was, I think, discussed at Strategy and Resources, in terms of these commercial units, we would make that spend at the point that the units were complete with a retention. So that helps to mitigate that risk. We're not sort of forward funding. The money doesn't go in now in the hope we'll get them later. It's when they are complete that we will pass that money over and purchase them.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Drew.
Yeah, mine's a secretary from Terry's question, and it may be more appropriate if Andrew answers this. How do we record this risk? I mean, we know historically the canal project is the biggest risk this council is underwriting. So are we separating Brimscombe Port from that? And if so, do we then subdivide the commercial element from the housing element? Because they are all intertwined, but they are all in their own way, different and, dare I say, quite high profile risks for a small council like this.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, David, for the question. So the project as a whole has a sort of a risk register which is managed through the Regeneration and Investment Board. In terms of the commercial units, effectively the most significant risk is the financial one, as is set out in the paper, that we'll spend the money, but we won't get the return from businesses wanting to occupy. I think, as the leader set out in her introduction, actually we've been quite successful. And past performance is not always an indicator of future performance, but in letting the Brimscombe Port Mill building and the pub down there, but it's clearly we will record as a financial risk that we won't get a return which covers the revenue costs. We hope that we will, but of course it's always a risk that we won't.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Todd.
Thank you. Just one follow-up question on this, because I'm personally quite satisfied with the what I understand to be the commitment made with the 630,000. I think I'm not sure, is it a complete commitment, as I understand, it's not a forward option with a price locked today and an option to not complete the purchase if the development isn't complete or other conditions aren't complete. I'm not sure. So if that bit could potentially be clarified, just from my understanding, as well as is the £630,000 considered to be a discount at market rates for those commercial units because we've committed at this point, or would that be the same as the number that would be offered at first refusal on those units? I don't know if there's a sense of that either between you, Councillor Braun, or between anyone of the officers.
So just to respond, there's no discount there. It's a commercial consideration and a commercial price that has been agreed with St Modwen Homes in the way that we would evaluate it and make sure that we're giving them a fair price for it, which is why the units will be let at a commercial rate, because that's the cost. Thanks.
Any other questions? Councillor Drew.
Quick one. I mean, I know audit committee can only look at expenditure that's already been foregone, but I would hope that audit committee would look at least annually at this whole project. It's such a big issue that somehow keeping a trail to know what is happening and that there is true accountability from the people who talk to me, that's what they're concerned about, that we know exactly what has been spent and what will be going to be spent. Given that that is not truly the role of the audit committee, but we need to keep a hold of this.
So just briefly to mention, this project is still with Strategy and Resources Committee at the moment, so we do receive regular updates. I'm sure we're going to receive more frequent updates as things start to scale up. If there are specific risks the Audit Committee would like to look at, then happy to let Audit Committee have a go on that, and perhaps I can pass over to Andrew in case there's anything else to say about the audit programme.
Sure. I mean, I don't have the audit work program in front of me, but as part of the project process, one of the things that we do is we keep an annual account of the money that we've spent on the project and the money that's come in from the mill building development, and we do ask internal audit to look at that, and that does come to the audit committee already. So I can make sure, I can't, without looking it up, I can't work out the timelines for that, but I can let members know, and we can share that report more widely when it becomes available.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions. So can I now read out the decision that you are going to be asked to vote on? This council resolves that the council commits to the purchase of the commercial units at Brimscombe Port from St Modwen Homes and delegates authority to the head of property services to agree final terms, take all necessary steps and undertake necessary procedures, including entering into any legal documents for and associated with entering into the development agreement for Brimscombe Port, and as may be required to complete the purchase of these units. 2, that a budget of £630,000 is added to the council's capital programme for the acquisition of these commercial units, as recommended by Strategy and Resources Committee. And can I see a proposer? Councillor Braun, and a seconder, Councillor Oldham. Do you wish to speak now, or do you want to reserve your right to speak later?
I'd like to speak later, thank you, Chair.
Can I open this up for debate? Is there anybody who wishes to speak to this proposal? Councillor Watson.
I've got 2 points to make, both to confirm that I'm fully in support of this going ahead. We've had a lot of interaction with the residents and the businesses already in that area. They gave Strategy and Resources quite a grilling, and they've spoken to a number of us separately with similar concerns that were raised this evening about the financial risks and things. And I personally am satisfied that this has been looked at extremely thoroughly and competently. And secondly, I think it's really important in these rather uncertain times that the council does keep some kind of control over who is actually going to enter into the contracts on these commercial premises. We've got a lot going on in town with empty premises, etc., etc. We've got a lot of opposition when sometimes are not very desirable to the local community. Commercial company just comes in and we don't have any say over it. So I'm really quite happy that Stroud is maintaining that control over who actually sets the tone of this development.
Councillor Oldham. Oh, beg your pardon. Councillor Pearce.
I'm only just going to respond to Councillor Drew's comment about the audit committee, is that there's an annual statement that comes from Brimscombe Court to the Audit Committee, which certifies the management accounts and making sure that the funding is done in an appropriate and an approved way. So just to give that reassurance.
Councillor Alden?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to speak briefly to commend this report to the committee. Another step on this long project involving so many people. I'd like to also just note some previous council members that have worked really hard on this project, including Martin Whiteside, Doina Cornell and Nick Hurst. So it really is a cross-party, huge project that we've been working on for many, many years. And I'd like to thank those who've come before us who've helped get to this stage. It's so exciting. It's not just a housing development. It's going to be a destination that will be exciting and beneficial, hopefully for the whole district. It's honouring our heritage as well, bringing back the canal. It's really exciting. And well done to officers and all those who've worked so hard on this through the many challenges, and there will be more to come, only some of which have been alluded to in this paper tonight. So thank you.
Councillor Braun, do you wish to sum up?
I think there's a lot to add, really. I thought it was an excellent paper in terms of presenting the background to the story fairly concisely, because it's been a very long journey. We hadn't originally planned to purchase these commercial units, as I mentioned, but I really do think it's the right decision, and I hope everyone will support it this evening.
Thank you. Now I'm going to move to the vote. And again, those of you who've attended these meetings will be now very familiar with the process. So the vote will be taken using the electronic voting buttons. Once the vote has been opened, the buttons will flash orange. Councillors will need to push button 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 to abstain. Each of your names and how you have voted will be listed on the screen. If your name does not show any vote against it, then your vote has not been registered. So if you could all vote now. So the vote is now closed, and we can see the results. 48 votes in favour, none against, and so that has been passed unanimously. Thank you very much, councillors. I'd now like to go on to agenda item 8. This is the UK 100 Charter for Collaboration, local leaders powering up the National Clean Energy Mission. And could I introduce Councillor Chloe Turner, Chair of the Environment Committee, to introduce the report.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good evening, everyone. While I remember, I'm just going to start by letting you know there's a small amendment to the decision box, minor amendment. The resolution should read, the Council resolves to sign the UK 100 Charter for Collaboration, local leaders powering up the National Clean Energy Mission. The amendment, therefore, only amends the published reference to the committee rather than Council. So UK 100, as you may be aware, is a membership organisation. This council has been a member of it since 2020. It very much ties into our climate emergency declaration that we made back in 2018. The organisation is about knowledge sharing, it's about partnership building and outreach and mentoring amongst local leaders on climate action and clean air. The benefits of membership include parliamentary interaction, meetings, workshops, webinars. If you haven't already had a look at the UK 100 website, I'd really recommend it. There's some fantastic thought leadership there on many of the areas of work that we are involved with. They offer tailored insights on aspects of net zero, connections with industry, and member-only programmes and training, which members of this council have taken advantage of to date. So the report sets out for you what the UK 100 Charter for Collaboration does. It's very much about the government's intention that the UK is a clean energy superpower, and what UK 100 are doing really is acknowledging the local delivery challenges around that. So very much behind the ambition, but how do we go about it, and how can we work together as councils to make that happen as effectively as possible? The Charter outlines the critical role of district councils like ourselves in transforming the UK energy system, and aligns with our own ambitions to accelerate the deployment of renewable energy and the supporting infrastructure, to implement local area energy plans, and in the case of Gloucestershire, that's a piece of work that's underway at the county level. We're doing it in partnership with some other adjoining councils. It's a very big piece of work, and it's just gone out to procurement now, the first sort of stage of it, but I expect you'll be hearing more about that in due course. It also aligns with our ambition to support councillors and officers to build public understanding of renewable energy infrastructure. The commitment also reinforces our desire to see planning reform to prioritise net zero, that investment should be made in a smarter and decentralised grid, and to ensure that local communities benefit from new renewable energy infrastructure and all of the benefits that come with that. So I'll just read out for you what the commitment that we'd be looking to make today if we choose to vote on this is. We'd be looking to support the local implementation of the Clean Energy Superpower Mission. We'd be looking to develop and implement local area energy plans that align with our local growth plan. We'd be looking to commit to upskilling planning committee councillors while introducing inclusive engagement strategies that build public understanding of the renewable energy ecosystem. And in particular, the commitment would also endorse the following statement. As members of UK 100, the only nationwide cross-party network of regional and local leaders committed to climate action, we, the undersigned local and regional leaders, call on the government to empower us and formally recognise our role. And there's a link to the charter there. There's a section of the report that just gives you a bit of background on the Great British Energy Bill, which I expect you are familiar with, but worth a look if you're not. And then in terms of the implications, it's just worth saying, so there are no financial implications of us signing the Charter tonight. To date, UK 100 has been free to be a member. By virtue of their sort of expanding role and what they are able to achieve, they are looking to move to a paid model. We are separately considering that. Officers are looking at that at the moment, but that's not what we're voting on tonight. We're just voting on the Charter. There are no specific new legal implications of signing the Charter, except that it has to be in line with our legislative duties, sorry, I always struggle with that word, and our wider procurement duties, no equality implications, and no specific environmental implications, although obviously this is all beneficial, the work that we're looking to do here for the environment and clean energy generally. So just remains to say that I'd very much like to commend this to you tonight, and I hope we'll be able to sign the Charter. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, can I ask us, have anybody got any questions on the report? No? Then I'm going to read out the decision that you're going to be asked to vote on. Council resolves to sign the UK 100 Charter for Collaboration, local leaders powering up the National Clean Energy Mission. Do we have a proposer, Councillor Turner? And is there a seconder? Is that Councillor Brown? Yes, Councillor Brown. Do you want to speak now, or do you want to reserve your right?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to say very briefly that the work of UK 100 and this Charter in particular so clearly align with our aims as a council and with the government's aims to the energy transition and the collaborative, in particular the collaborative nature of it. And just take this opportunity to acknowledge the work that Councillors Turner and Councillor Luff and anyone else I'm missing have done with UK 100 and continue to do. Thank you. And I commend the...
Can I open up the room for debate? Does anybody wish to speak? Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Chair. So at the last full council meeting, I made comments on a similar related topic, and my speech was so persuasive that literally nobody agreed with me. So I thought I'd, give it round two. So there are two particular objections I'd like to make in relation to this. The first is about this urgent need to decarbonise our grid. Now, I am, of course, no climate scientist. I don't claim to be. But there are credible climate scientists who do question the urgency of this. Now, it is clear that we are contributing towards the warming of our planet through the emission of carbon. But it isn't clear the extent to which our contributions are having an impact, the long-term impact of that, and the impact of, say, going net zero globally and stopping those emissions. Now, Councillor Cambites at the last council raised the excellent point, but, well, surely we should play it safe anyway, which is a reasonable response. But the scale of that response, I think, is disproportionate to the threat that we face. So this is something that will come at an enormous cost. According to the Office of Budget Responsibility, it's estimated that going net zero in the UK by 2050 would cost £321 billion. It's an extraordinary amount of money. And if this were the only primary issue that we'd face, then that is justifiable, but it isn't. The second thing I'd like to raise then is a question about practicality. So let's say the assumptions made by the Charter are correct and the entire UK moved to net zero tomorrow. Well, that would have no impact on reducing global climate emissions of carbon. So the UK is responsible for 0.81% of global emissions, China for 31%, the USA 13%, India 8%, Russia 4%. And these countries aren't going to follow what we do. So if we could spend all of this money to transform our society, which would need to happen because it involves energy and the economy and all kinds of other areas, it would actually not achieve the aim that this sets out to achieve, and therefore seems like somewhat pointless activity. Now, I know Councillor Turner at the last meeting did raise that there are other potential benefits to this, but in light of the other challenges that we face as a society, I don't see this as being a priority in the same way, so I'll be voting against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Are there anybody else that wishes to speak? I see Councillor Watson.
I'm just gathering my thoughts and taking a deep breath before answering to make sure I'm respectful. But I'm going to be voting for this. I don't really care what the other countries are doing. I have no say over what they do. But I do have a role. I've been elected to represent my residents and their children and all of the creatures that we share this planet with, particularly around the Stroud area. And I will do everything in my power to actually do something about preventing the pretty much every scientist that is in this realm has agreed is an almost unavoidable task now because of the 30, 40, 50 years, that's about how long I've been alive, that the pressure that's been put on to try and pretend that we're not having an impact on this planet. I am incredulous that anybody can suggest that we're not having that impact and that anybody can suggest that we as a council who have made these commitments to carbon neutral and increasing biodiversity, etc., I'm going to stop there because I'm getting quite cross, but I will certainly be voting for this, and I hope that everyone else in the chamber will follow that lead for the sake of all of our children, and possibly even their children if they get a chance to survive on this planet.
Thank you, councillors. Can I ask Councillor Cook?
I too will be supporting this motion. A piece of advice from an old sweat, Robert. If you want to make a persuasive argument, choose an argument which people don't feel so passionate about, particularly since you're standing up against almost everybody, I think, in this room, as it sat at this minute, which is very brave, and you make some good points. Because basically, at the end of the day, the science behind this, as far as I can see, I'm no climate scientist, the weight behind it is so strong that it's almost impossible to stand against that wave coming at us. I think the points that you make around the impact and the amount of impact that we would have with, I think the figure was 0.4% or something like that we would have if we stopped it now. 0.81%. That's not the point. The point actually is that we need to be leaders in this for the rest of the world. And basically, at the end of the day, we may not have a huge impact, and I probably would, some people would say we would, but we may not have one. But again, that really isn't the point. The point is we need to be leaders in this area, and I'm really pleased that the Labour government are actually taking a big lead in this by setting up British Energy and the commitments that they've made to the whole green agenda. And I think that that is the most important thing that this is doing, is actually showing that we as a group of people, or as a nation, are actually taking a lead in doing this green, in taking these green agendas forward.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Councillor Simkith.
Thank you. Yes, I too echo the same comments, and I think it is incumbent on us to make sure that we are leading and that we are setting out our stall, and particularly in light of the increased housing targets that we're going to have, we need to make sure that we're taking everything to account. So absolutely, I will be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dardy.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just going to also join a long line of confessions to not being a climate. Is that okay? I'm just going to join a long line of confessions to not being a climate scientist either in this room. But I am a evidence-based person, and I think I use reason to come to my judgments. And I think that the evidence is, as a matter of fact, overwhelming. And beyond the evidence of decarbonising for our environment, there's a great deal of evidence, as noted in this report, for our national security, for our economy, for our local economy, for our regional economy, that the host of benefits that decarbonising our grids bring. The money spent on transitioning to net zero is not a nitrific excess into the wind. In that sense, it is an investment into our future, and it will pay dividends for years and years to come. I would like that to just be really clear. So I will be supporting this motion. This is a brilliant motion, and I'm really pleased, and I'd like to commend the effort that's gone into drafting it. It is going to be looking at all of the different legal and economic capacities of the council that we have to try and step forward on the front foot. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Caton Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to ask people to look around them right now and see what you own, what you've bought, what the council has bought or procured, and how much has been made in China. We talk about China as if it's another place, it has nothing to do with us. We buy, we procure from there, and then we ship it over here. Those emissions are not just, as it were, the responsibility of China, they're our responsibility every time we buy this. And it's that kind of lack of understanding that we need to correct. Collaboration is vital, hence this subject is vital to us, as is public awareness. And so I support this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Canning.
Thank you, Chair. I think I just wanted to add to the long line of responses to the objections being raised and just make a couple of points on the realities of some of the points that have been made. So firstly, renewable energy, to develop it, is far cheaper than fossil fuels. We're also reducing our risk against price shocks. We've seen the price of oil and gas raise significantly because of the war in Ukraine, for example. By onshoring our energy generation, we will make sure that there is much more protection against those energy rises, which obviously this programme will help to support. And also the point around net zero costing. There's been subsequent reports that prove that actually the cost of not doing anything is far, far greater. So I think it's quite disappointing that the objections being raised reflect the previous government's failure to support and protect the environment, their failure to really protect public finances, and also their failure to support and protect the public from the price rises that have come from that as well, which is all linked to the challenges that we're facing, which this will address. Thank you.
Councillor Dutton.
Thank you. I mean, we only have to look around us to see the effects of climate change. It's here with us. We can't really deny it. And I can't tell you what a relief it is to have a new government which is accelerating the pace of decarbonising the UK after all these years. It makes environmental sense, and as Councillor Canning says, it makes economic sense and also national security sense. The solutions are already here. They are economically viable. We should be just getting on with it. And so it's really pleasing to see that the government will be providing support for this. Reaching the targets are going to be challenging, and we know the infrastructure is a bit creaky. So there's a huge opportunity to develop energy locally and develop these local energy plans. I'm really pleased to hear that what's going on at the county council level already to start this in motion. And I think we should be getting behind this. And I think this 100 objective is really helpful. It'll help us share good practice. I'm very supportive of this proposal. We should be sharing best practice and delivering effective change. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Our strategy for net zero is to lead the world in ending our contribution to climate change while turning this mission into the greatest opportunity for jobs and prosperity for our country since the Industrial Revolution. Those aren't my words. They are the words of former Prime Minister Boris Johnson in his foreword in the former government's net zero strategy. He went on to say, the United Kingdom's not afraid to lead the charge towards global net zero because history has never been made by those who sit at the back of the class hoping not to be called on. Indeed, as we set an example to the world by showing that reaching net zero is entirely possible, so the likes of China and Russia following our lead with their own net zero targets as prices tumble and green tech becomes the global norm. Now, I would never normally cite Boris Johnson, but I hope that it provides some reassurance and it shows that this is indeed a cross-party issue. It's not a political issue. And for anyone that thinks that Boris Johnson might be maybe a little bit too left-wing, a little bit too wet, a little bit too wishy-washy, who went on to become Chancellor said he went on to make more points anyway. So yeah, they recognise that it's a huge opportunity, also a huge risk. It's something that we need to get right, and it's right that councils across the country and countries across the world and all people really take the action that we need to address this. It's such a grand danger, really. It's a almost unimaginable scale of change that needs to happen, and it's almost unique in terms of a human problem. That scale of change, it's hard to grasp. So I'm very pleased that so many in this chamber recognise that issue. But I also recognise it's not easy to stand up and be a lone voice or a dissenting voice. So I do respect that, and debate is always important.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Pearcey.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to say just a few words. Quite a while ago now, I did study climate, so I'm not going to say that I was because I was. At the time, though, there weren't that many people talking about climate change. It was all about acid rain. Does anybody remember about acid rain? Who talks about acid rain now? Why? Because we sorted it. We desulfurised the plants, we moved away from coal, and we made a difference, made a world difference. There is still some acid rain around, but compared with what it was 40 years ago, we got it resolved. So we can do this, and by signing on to these charters, we can make a difference. Whether we do it through lead by example, we can make a difference, and we can stop climate change, and we can reverse it. And also can support the mitigations where it has unfortunately tipped over the balance, where we've got the Indian Ocean countries where they're suffering from flooding, etc., and ingress from sea. But we can make a difference. We can turn the tide, and we can do it. So that's why we're absolutely supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Luff.
Councillor Brown mentioned an OBR report from 2021. The problem with that report is it doesn't take into account the benefits of it. And the OBR in 2023, in a separate report, found that continued reliance on gas could be more than twice as expensive as a transition to net zero. So the economic arguments against it don't even stack up. The moral arguments don't even have a chance of stacking up. This is an existential risk, possibly. Might not happen, but it could be an existential risk. And it's called the precautionary principle. If there's a risk that's really bad, you take sensible measures against it, and supporting for what is in actual fact probably cost positive and that our economy will grow more by taking these measures. I don't see why we would not be supportive of UK 100 who are showing leadership, because leadership is important. Leadership's important from this council and from this country. And to say that we only cause a small proportion of the damage from our emissions, every extra degree has very significant impacts across the world. Even parts of degrees have very significant impacts across the world. So if we carry on as usual, the situation will be worse than if we take positive action. So I'll be very much supporting this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Braun.
Thank you. I'll be supporting this paper as well this evening. I've had some interaction with UK 100 and they're a really interesting organisation, really committed to supporting councillors. As Councillor Turner's mentioned, they've done some great work and they've got some fantastic briefings, which is all about empowering councillors in our role to take action, to understand what our powers are as local authorities. And this specific charter, which relates to renewable energy, I think again relates directly to our powers that we have in relation to strategic planning. And it's all about cooperation. The local area action plans are referenced as part of the commitment within the Charter, something that we're already working on through Climate Leadership Gloucestershire. When I attend the City Region Board meetings on behalf of this council, I've also raised renewable energy as an opportunity with the City Region Board, and I think we're expecting a paper on that sometime in the new year. We're also looking at local growth plans. There's been a local growth plan workshop recently for Gloucestershire, so we'll have opportunities as well to embed renewable energy within those growth plans. And then thinking as well about the new council structures that we'll be working towards over the coming years. As I mentioned at the outset of the meeting, climate action is one of those powers that will be sitting at the level of strategic authority. That will be building on all the work that we're doing now. So the more that we do now, the more that we'll have to pass on at some point into the future. It's exciting. There's a lot of challenges. There are challenges for us with our planning about where we assign space for development. That's certainly clear. We're going to have a new local plan coming forward once we've got our current adopted local plan. And as you will have seen in our council plan, we've also made a commitment to engage more with utility providers, with National Grid, with water. We understand that investment in this national infrastructure related to power will just unleash the potential of renewable energy as well as so many more things. So for all those reasons, I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stanley.
We have all seen the impact of climate change recently, and some of us might even say that we have suffered from it, but we have not suffered in the way that the poor of the world are suffering, have suffered and will suffer. And this is a moment when the voices of the poor cry out to us for justice.
Thank you. I'm not seeing anybody else that wishes to speak. So, Councillor Turner, would you like to sum up?
Thank you. If it wasn't for the fact that they're probably made in China, I was thinking of buying you a Climate Strikes mug for Christmas. But thank you. This has been very jolly. Thank you for everyone's comments. I was at a UK 100 reception last night, and what is so brilliant about it is it's genuinely cross-party, and it's something that almost all of us can get behind. Everyone is completely committed to this mission because it has so many co-benefits, and it's so important that we show leadership on it. So I hope we can all vote for it tonight, apart from Robert, maybe.
Thank you, councillors. I'm now going to open the vote. So 1 for yes, if you support the proposal, 2 for no, and 3 for abstain. So you see the results. 45 are in support, 3 have indicated no, and there are no abstentions. So this is an agreed proposal. Thank you very much. And I would now like to go on to agenda item 9, which is the appointment of an independent person and parish town council representative. And I would like to ask Councillor Bob Hughes, who is the chair of Audit and Standards Committee, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. If you thought the last issue roused passion, and wait till you get to this one. Yeah. So in May this year, the Council approved the recruitment process for an independent person and for 3 independent people for the parish and town council representatives. The role of the independent person is a statutory post which assists the council in maintaining and promoting high ethical standards of conduct for councillors. If the council decides to investigate an allegation and the code of conduct has been breached, then the view of the independent person may be sought and taken into account before a decision is made. So in accordance with the legislation, we advertised the role of the independent person, and an interview panel consisting of myself and the Vice Chair of the Audit and Standards Committee, along with the monitoring officer, was set up to do the interviews. For the independent person, you'll see we're recommending the appointment of Melvin Kenyon, a particularly strong candidate who's worked in similar roles before and more widely in ways that we can bring his talents into bear. We also advertised for the position of parish and town council representatives, and we did some interviews and we recommended the appointment of both Steve Tilley and Emma Trinder, who also have great experience and the right skills to fulfil the role. Group leaders have also been consulted about the recommendations to ensure there was no potential conflict with any known political activities of the proposed appointees. I therefore recommend that we vote in favour of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. First of all, are there any questions concerning this recommendation? I see none. And so the decision that you're going to be asked to vote on is as follows. This council resolves to appoint Melvin Kenyon as an independent person for an initial period of 2 years until the annual meeting of council in May 2026, when the appointment may be reviewed and extended for a further 2 years by agreement between the council and the independent person, and B, to appoint Steve Tilley and Emma Trinder as parish/town council representatives to sit on the standards subcommittee for an initial period of 2 years until the annual meeting of the council in May 2026, when the appointment may be reviewed and extended for a further 2 years by agreement between the council and the parish town council representatives. The proposer I see is Councillor Bob Hughes, and the seconder is Councillor Piercy. Do you wish to speak now, Councillor Piercy? So can I open it up for debate? Does anybody wish to speak on this particular proposal? Councillor Cook.
I'm going to get passionate about this. No, I'm not. My point from making a point here is actually is to say that in the depths of the devolution white paper, there is a provision now that will change the role of the independent person kind of going forward. Maybe not over the next 2 years, but certainly in years to come. And that is, I believe, is to be welcomed. And that is, as it currently stands, if we have a discipline issue with a member, there is literally nothing we can do. We can ask them to say things and to apologise, but if they don't, they don't. In fact, there has been an example of a member of council, not here, I hasten to add, a member of council being on the child protection register, and the council was completely unable to remove that person. That is changing in the next thing, which I think should be welcomed. I think would be welcomed by all members to kind of give that help. These are the people that are going to be undertaking that work. So I just want to say, basically, at the end of the day, the role they're playing now is going to be strengthened in the future, which I think is a good thing.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? No, then Councillor Hughes, do you wish to sum up? No? Okay, then I'm going to go for a vote. So the electronic vote has been opened. If you are in support of these recommendations, please could you vote 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for abstain. And I can see the votes closed with a unanimous support for the proposal. I'm going to go on now to item 10, which is the review of polling districts, polling places and polling stations 2024. And if I could invite Councillor Braun, the Leader of Council, to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. I've got all the polling spaces this evening. So the Local Government Boundary Commission for England, LGBCE, has recently undertaken a review of the county division boundaries across the whole of Gloucestershire. As a result of the review, the number of county divisions within the Stroud district has increased from 10 to 11, with a new county division being Haresfield and Upton St Leonards. The changes come into effect on the 1st of April 2025, ahead of the county elections in May. As a result, following the review, the LGBCE has been required to make related alterations to the parishes of Hamfallow and Randwick and Westrick Parish Council to align the parish ward boundaries with the revised county divisions, and we've therefore needed to undertake a polling district review to align our polling districts with the new parish boundaries to ensure they are coterminous. I think this is Councillor Edmund's ward, which I always struggle to pronounce. This process and subsequent consultation are a formality, and we must align the polling districts with the parish boundaries for effective community governance. The consultation commenced on Friday 25th of October and closed on Sunday the 1st of December. 6 responses were received, 2 of which were from the parish councils who understood the review as a formality to align their polling districts with the revised parish warding arrangements from the LGBCE. The responses to the consultation are included in the report. Additionally, we're proposing to change the polling station for electors in Hamfallow to the Cannon Park Pavilion instead of Berkeley Town Hall. This is due to feedback received from the May and July elections this year, which indicated that Berkeley Town Hall was not suitable for use as a double station due to the size. The report is seeking Council's approval for the proposed changes to the polling districts and places, and is also seeking authorisation for the Head of Corporate Policy and Governance to make the relevant alterations to the electoral register ahead of republication in January. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braun. Are there, first of all, any questions arising from this report? Councillor Edmonds.
Just quickly, I'm okay with obviously understanding the alignment and everything. My only concern was the use of Moor Hall, the Scout Hut. My only concern is, I hope people would walk and the houses around there would be better using that facility. But my only concern is obviously there's very little parking, so it's just to check that, obviously parking's being thought of. There's very little parking there. The main road will get clogged up and it's right by the school, so it's a concern for people. Thank you.
Do you want to address that, Councillor Braun, or is there anybody else?
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to defer to Jenna Malpass, if possible, who I know has been undertaking a lot of detailed research on each of the different proposals. Thank you.
Lambert on microphone, sorry. So the polling station there, we have used it for the other side of the parish ward, and we haven't had any concerns. Obviously, we will still monitor it going forward. Obviously, with the county elections, we don't have an extremely large turnout usually, so hopefully that can be monitored, and we'll make sure that on the day the presiding officers make us aware if there are any issues in particular. But hopefully people, like you said, will be walking in that direction. Thanks.
I can't see any other questions. So can I read out the decision that you're going to be asked to vote on? The Council resolves to approve the schedule of polling districts and polling places as listed in Appendix B for Hamfallow and Randwick and Westrip parish councils, and B, to authorise the Head of Corporate Policy and Governance to make the necessary amendments to the Register of Electors on behalf of the Electoral Registration Officer, and C, to delegate authority to the Acting Returning Officer to approve alternative polling places in the event any polling place becomes unavailable or unsuitable outside of the compulsory review period. So we have a proposal, Councillor Braun, and we have A seconder, is that Terry Cook, Councillor Cook? Thank you very much indeed. Do you wish to speak now or to reserve?
I'll make a couple of quick remarks if I may, Chair. Basically, I promised the leader that I would try and find some jokes around polling to kind of liven this particular item up. Frankly, I got a little bit concerned that I might cause offence if I said too many jokes. And the second point is, quite frankly, I couldn't think of any. But the one thing that I would say is actually, this is dry. You know, it's. I think even Jenna's kind of smiling at me, saying when it's dry. But it is essential. It is a key part that oils our democracy. And all these facts and figures that these people are taking part in, that Jenna and her team and others take in doing this, is a critical part of making sure that our democracy runs smoothly. I think they should. I think we should bear that in mind as we vote for this.
Councillor Drew.
Well, I wouldn't want to go without any remark. I mean, they did come up with a ludicrous idea of taking Trinity Ward out of Stroud and putting it somewhere else. Well, I do feel sorry for Hamfallow, you know, one of the smallest wards, well, parts of our district is now getting, well, they're great, they got 2 county councillors. But some of these things, I mean, why the Boundary Commission has to spend hours on putting a division halfway across Hamfallow is beyond belief. And, you know, we did break the mould on Trinity because the numbers in Stroud are now over the top. So common sense should have prevailed a lot earlier and we wouldn't have to go through this ludicrous process.
Thank you, Councillor Drew. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? Councillor Shoemaker?
Yeah, I mean, I feel this democracy at work. I don't believe so. I believe that the objections and thoughts of local people have not been taken into account, and therefore I won't support this.
Thank you. Anybody else? I don't see anybody else. So the proposer, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I hear that people may have some concerns with the process and the Local Government Boundary Commission for England. I think we all share those concerns because the lines don't neatly fall through communities, do they? But this is a really important piece of work that's been undertaken. It's been a detailed piece of work. It's involved going out to lots of places and speaking to a lot of people about polling districts, polling places and polling stations. And as we've discussed, it's part of our, it's an important part of our democracy. It allows people to vote and understanding where we vote, and we have to organise it in that way. It's not going to be neat and tidy necessarily for every community, but I would encourage everyone to support it this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braun. Can I now move to the vote? And if you wish to support this proposal, could you vote 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for abstain? And so I see again we have 45 people who are in support, 1 who does not support and 1 abstention. And so again, this is a proposal that is passed. So now can I move on to item 11, which is the appointment to the Independent Remuneration Panel. And could I invite Councillor Katie Hoffman, who is the chair of the Member Development Working Group, to present the report.
Thank you. Yes, so this report is another independent body, but it is something that is going to affect all of us if we're still here in 2026. So the report seeks agreement for the appointment of the Independent Remuneration Panel. The IRP plays a critical role in ensuring that the allowances provided to councillors are fair, transparent and reflective of our responsibilities. The panel reviews and makes recommendations on the levels of basic allowance, special responsibility allowances and other payments such as travel and subsistence allowances. The council is required to appoint an IRP with a minimum of 3 members to make recommendations on the scheme of members' allowances. Since 2019, the council has shared panel members and the recruitment process with Gloucester City Council. although the panels remain separate. Members of the IRP receive travel expenses in relation to meetings at the council offices but are not remunerated. Recently, a recruitment process was taken with Gloucester City Council to recruit a new panel, and officers interviewed 4 candidates, and we are recommending that all 4 candidates are appointed to the panel to make sure it is diverse and resilient. The applicants bring a range of experience and expertise, which is outlined in section 2.4 on page 56 of your report. All of the proposed panel members have a keen interest in voluntary service and making a difference to communities. If appointed, the panel will be asked to review parish and town councillor allowances in 2025 and district councillor allowances also at the end of 25 to be reported in 26 to the council. The appointment of a suitable IRP is crucial for ensuring the scheme of members' allowances is fair and transparent, and I therefore encourage members to support the appointment of the 4 panel candidates. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hoffman. Are there any questions on this report? I don't see any questions, and so can I read out the resolution? Council resolves that the following be appointed to the Independent Remuneration Panel from December 2024 to December 2028. They are Graham Russell, John Podmore, Wendy Stevenson and Kira Stobie. We have a proposer, Councillor Katie Hoffman, and I think Councillor Cambites is going to second. Do you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
I will just say that while we don't like talking about our own allowances, it gets embarrassing, it is really important that they are decided independently. And also it's really important that nobody is ruled out from being a councillor on the grounds that they can't afford it. So it is really important we look at this. Thank you.
Thank you. I can now open this up for any debate. Does anybody? Councillor Green?
I just wanted to echo what Carol just said then, and also I just wanted to say by the looks of it, and I'm no expert, but it looks like we've got some amazing experience here, so I think we would be stupid not to.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? No. In which case, the proposer, would you like Councillor Hoffman to say anything to sum up? No, that's fine. So I'm going to move to the vote. And again, if you want to vote to support the proposal, can you vote 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for abstain? And you will see that again, we have a unanimous support for this, 47 people voting in favour, nobody against and nobody abstaining. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to move on to item 12, the civic timetable. And could I introduce and ask Councillor Braun, Leader of Council, to present the report?
Thank you. This will be a short presentation. So you will have seen the dates for the meetings in the document pack. So the dates for the civic year have been published, but since publication we have been notified by the County Council that they're likely to hold their budget and council tax setting meeting on Wednesday the 18th of February. So after discussion with officers, we're now proposing to hold our budget meeting for Stroud District Council on Thursday the 19th of February, the following day. This change from the originally published date of 13th of February unfortunately means that we will have one meeting that falls within the Gloucestershire school holiday dates, but there were no other meetings scheduled during the school holidays according to the civic timetable. Could you try to avoid that? It's just because of the time pressures really once we've had that budget meeting in terms of printing and proofing all the council tax and all the other things that need to go out. So I hope these dates will be acceptable to everyone.
Thank you. First of all, are there any questions arising out of the civic timetable? No? Oh, I beg your pardon,
Can
Councillor
I just
Green.
ask, sorry, I'm just slightly confused because mine says the 12th here, that says the 19th. I'm just slightly confused. Can you just explain that again? Sorry.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I've had the flu. So in the, we were originally trying to hold the budget meeting the week before half term, but we've just been notified since the papers were published that the county council's going to be holding its budget meeting on the 18th. And of course we need that information in order to hold our budget meeting the following day, because we've got to approve the final council tax for the district. So it has to be on the 19th, because the following week would just be too late given all the things that need to happen.
Is everybody content? No other questions? To be clear, what you're going to be asked to approve is Council resolves to agree the civic timetable for 2025-2026. And we have a proposer, Councillor Braun, and we have a seconder, Councillor Kennedy. Do you wish to speak to this? No, I don't see anybody wanting to speak to it. Would anybody else like to speak in the debate? Oh, what a surprise. Would you like to sum up or say anything, Councillor Braun? Oh, thank you very much. So I'll now go on to the vote to agree the civic timetable. Again, 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for abstain. And again, we have a unanimous support, 47 people supporting that. So now we're going to go on to the next agenda item, which is agenda 13, committee, the committee paper, the changes to committee membership. The appointment to Community Services and Licensing Committee Chair and Vice Chair. They are shown on the screen. Councillor Martin Brown, sorry, I mixed you up with the leader, Martin, sorry. Councillor Martin Brown to be replacing Councillor Natalie Rothwell-Warne on Community Services and Licensing Committee. The nominations that have been received for the Chair and Vice Chair of Community Services and the Licensing Committee are on the screen now. Are there any further nominations? In the absence of any further nominations, we will take the vote for the Chair and the Vice Chair together. And again, you are familiar now, 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for abstain. Oh, I have to vote. Sorry. And again, we have unanimous conclusion to that with 47 members voting in support and none against. Thank you very much. So we now go on to the next item, which is, beg your pardon, item 14, which is the Ubico growth report. I think the Chief Executive, Cathy O'Leary, is going to be introducing this report.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's the first of 2 reports this evening in my capacity as the Council's Ubico shareholder representative. So for the benefit of some of our newer councillors, I have set out in the report a little bit of detail about what Ubico is and what Ubico does. And I'm hoping that some members took the opportunity yesterday evening to hear from the Ubico Managing Director, who I think gave very good account of herself at the time when the leader and I were in another meeting. So I didn't actually hear what she said yesterday evening. I know that was principally about their business plan for the year ahead. This is about something quite different. This is about some growth opportunities that have arisen for Yubico, and what we're being asked to do is to agree in principle that Yubico explore those growth opportunities, and to do that they will need a little bit of funding from us. So that's the reason why I need to bring it to full council, because there's a little bit of funding that is needed that would come from our waste and recycling reserve. So it's an in principle agreement for Yubico to explore those two potential growth opportunities. They are, quite unsurprisingly, with neighbouring councils. I'm not at liberty to say very much more about them because there are a couple of non-disclosure agreements in place, because you'll appreciate that such investigations are commercially sensitive. But suffice to say that what Yubico wants to do is investigate those growth opportunities with the view to bringing back to us a business plan that we can look at for them. And they will also need to necessarily explore the company structure, because the company structure may need to change if one or another of those growth opportunities comes good. So that's what we're being asked to do to support that. The shareholders are very much in the place where we think that Yubico should be allowed to explore those two potential prizes. It would benefit us as one of those original shareholders, and it would benefit the other shareholders too, to quite some considerable degree, but we need to explore just how much that is. They're asking, not unreasonably, for a small amount of money to be able to do that investigation work. It's likely that they're going to have to take an extra resource to look at both the business plan and the growth opportunities as well as the company structure. They think it's likely to cost in the ambit of £30,000 to do that. Our share of that is quite small, but just to be on the safe side, we're recommending we cap that at £10,000 at this point in time, just to allow us to do that. So I'm very happy to take any questions. You'll appreciate that there's quite a lot I probably can't say because of the commercial confidentiality, but I would urge members to think about the principle of this agreement. Every one of the shareholders has to agree to this for this to go forward. So we are being asked to do that, and I am of course asking you what you would like me to do as Yubico shareholder representative for this council. Happy to take any questions, thank you.
Councillor Hamilton. Oh, Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask if, as this process continues, will there be an opportunity to review and consider any implications that there might be for the resourcing, quality and timeliness of the support and services that we get from Yubico and rely on within the district, so that they're not diminished in any way by these growth plans?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Hamilton. Yes, absolutely. That's one of the main concerns of the shareholders that I think you'll see set out in the report. It's one of the key risks. We've identified that we don't want the services to our residents to be diminished. So that's why the business case needs to be fully explored, and that's why an alternative company structure would need to be considered as well, because we want to make sure that we do protect those services. The business plan will come before this council. It's not something I have the authority to be able to agree by myself as the shareholder representative. So any business case will come back to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. The Chief Executive feel that it's still a worthy task to go through, bearing in mind that, as we've heard earlier on, in the next 2-3 years, the shareholders, the stakeholders will diminish considerably.
To answer your question, Councillor Robinson, yes, absolutely, because one of the things that we're looking at here is economies of scale, and that is precisely what the government is recommending that we do in terms of looking at economies of scale with both unitaries and also combined authorities. It may well be that some of the neighbouring authorities that we're talking about here may well be part of that future combined authority structure, so there's every good reason why we might want to explore these opportunities.
Councillor Hughes? I beg. Councillor Hughes, sorry.
Sorry for the confusion. Thank you, Chair. My question was the same about devolution, that from what we've heard today from Councillor Braun and the implications of this on you know, and the fast-moving devolution question as to whether that will be, you know, part of this restructuring is taken into consideration. Thank you.
It'll need to be if devolution comes about in due course, but I would just more or less repeat what I've just said. This is about looking at economies of scale. This is looking about increasing the size of the partnership that we've got. You'll see that the shareholders at the moment are everybody within this county, so the county council and the six districts, but also West Oxfordshire District Council. So we're already across a county boundary. Now, it may well be that some of the opportunities we're exploring look into other adjacent areas that may or may not in the future become part of the combined authority structure that we might later agree for this county.
I'm sorry, may I, just as a supplementary, my concern is that we spend money now and then that review has to be duplicated in 1, 2, 3 years' time. And
I don't think it would be duplicated because trying to think ahead about what devolution might mean for us, at some point in time, Ubico will need to reshape to replicate what happens in local authority world, because at the moment I suppose it's all of the district councils and the county council, and if we think that there's going to be potentially one unitary for the whole area, then Ubico would become a slightly different entity. But that doesn't stop us at the moment from exploring how to do more in a different way with one eye on that future that may well be part of a combined authority structure. So I think that's a legal conundrum we might get into later on down the line, but really we should not stop any activity that we're doing when really all we're being asked to do here is to look at economies of scale, look to make things the best that we can for the moment, and then carry them forward into any new structure that we have got. So I don't think that stops us doing anything at the moment, and I would not want to stop Ubico's ambition to explore these opportunities, which seem to me to be perfectly good ones for us to look at a business case for.
Thank you.
Councillor Matthews.
Thank you. A slightly pedantic question for which I apologise, but Part C of the resolution states that the cost will be shared between the stakeholders. I'm assuming that that means shared equally between the stakeholders, but it's probably advisable to be clear.
Thank you very much. Yes, you're absolutely right. Stakeholders, shareholders, interchangeable terms, there are 8. So it would be divided equally between those, if that helps.
So I'm not seeing any other questions, so I'm going to read out the decision that you're going to be asked to vote on. Council resolves to authorise the Chief Executive, who exercises the Ubico shareholder function on behalf of the Council, to give approval for Ubico to continue to explore growth opportunities with potential new stakeholders. B, to authorise the Chief Executive in her capacity as the Council's shareholder representative to give approval for Ubico to begin work to design a potential new company structure in the event that the new stakeholders join the partnership. And C, to authorise the Chief Executive to agree the Council's share of the additional resource needed to investigate A and B above, the cost of which will be shared, brackets equally, between all stakeholders, the District Council share not to exceed £10,000. You have a proposer, I gather, Councillor Turner, and a seconder, Councillor Watson. So, also, can I just bear with me? Do you want to speak, Councillor Turner?
Only very briefly to just say, one of my roles with my Environment Chair hat on is to, alongside the Community Services Officers, to review the Ubico contract performance and budget on a quarterly basis. I've been really impressed with the way that the service operates, and through that process I've observed that we have benefited, as Chief Executive pointed out, from economies of scale as new partners have joined over time. So I think it's really positive that we're looking at new opportunities and the benefits that will likely result from that. So I'd like to commend this to you tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Watson, do you wish to speak now, or do you want to reserve your right to speak later?
I'll finish. I'll do it later.
So could I open this up for debate? Does anybody wish to speak to this report? Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. The Ubico partnership has given us a very, valuable service, and it's been really good value for money. We've got good quality service that we get from them. And, just this morning I was stood with my 3-year-old daughter at the window waving at them, and they were very vigorously waving back, as they do every week. So, these things are important. Bins are one of those fundamental things that all of us as councillors are, the face of, really, and it's really important to our communities. Just to acknowledge those questions that some members raised about sort of what's the longevity of this structure going forwards with the devolution and with the reorganisation. I actually think that that the Ubico thing is probably going to be one of the most straightforward parts of all of this. I've heard from leaders of other unitarised authorities that it's a long and drawn out ongoing process to bring together the staff from all these different councils on different terms and conditions, different finance systems, all those kinds of things. So I actually think that the Ubico and other shared services that we have could actually be some of the easiest things to transfer across, because they're all kind of on the same level already. So actually, I'm thinking, looking forwards, are there more things like this that we might be able to do that help to line things up a bit more ahead of that unitarisation, ahead of the shadow authority, things like that. But these conversations, it's going to be like Brexit. To be very, very frank, these next few years will be like Brexit in terms of just the probably domination of our thinking and of our decision making of the things that we're going to have to do to prepare for this. But the Ubico is not at risk, and that £10,000 maximum that we'll spend on this, I think, will be very valuable for us.
Thank you. Councillor Watson, do you want to say anything?
Yes, I just wanted to say from my operational professional waste perspective that Ubico's service to us in the few years I've been a councillor has improved in leaps and bounds as the new districts have been added. Economies of scale really do help us to match the professionalism that the commercial companies can reach, and particularly the presentation yesterday. I think they are actually they've reached that level now that I left the waste company 5 years ago. So every credit to them for taking these opportunities when they arise. With simpler recycling on the way, we will need to change what we do, and they're already on it. And they're looking to optimise how we can all deliver that locally, all of the shareholders, and including us. We've been asking them to do things that they couldn't do because of certain constraints. So part of this is actually to meet the objectives that we've asked them to deliver on our behalf. Also, I'm on the Gloucestershire Resource and Waste Partnership, vice chairing this year. All the districts are really got a huge appetite to work together to deliver improved services and collaborate on getting much stronger financial and environmental achievements from the way we manage and deal with our waste. It's quite an exciting time, and with Ubico now having all of the county districts within their service delivery, suddenly that opportunity has come a lot quicker and bigger. And again, economies of scale, if we're all doing the same stuff nationally within those boundaries of simply recycling, we're going to fly with Ubico at the helm. As far as the changes to local structure, this is a service delivery. It almost doesn't matter who's in charge and who's pulling those strings. But we do have a leading role here. We've got some excellent waste professionals in Stroud alone, let alone across the county. And those skills will continue to contribute to us setting the pace and delivering a brilliant service, regardless of how this devolution deal works out. As Pete says, the bins are still going to need collecting, the kids are still going to wave at the trucks, etc., etc. So I totally support what Yubico are doing at the moment and their ambition.
Thank you. In the absence of any further members wishing to speak, I'm going to move to the vote. Again, if you wish to support this proposal, can you vote 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for abstain? Very helpfully, the Chief Executive has indicated that the abstention arises out of a declaration of interest. So again, I think we can say unanimous support for this proposal. Before I move on to the next item, can I just formally say to you that we could be having a break in terms of our constitutional arrangements. However, we only have one more item on the agenda. So could I just take the temperature of the meeting? And if you wish to have a break, could you raise your hands, please? And I see nobody who wishes to raise their hands. So I am going to move on to the final item on the agenda, which again is a matter relating to Yubico and the shareholder agreement. And if I could introduce Cathy O'Leary, the Chief Executive, to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and keep this very brief because I'm sure you're itching for a longer break than a short one. This is a more straightforward report, but it comes last for a reason which I'll explain. So this is about making the necessary consequential changes to the shareholder agreement, largely through new partners like Gloucester City joining it. The reason why it's last on the agenda is because I'm able to share with members the detail of the changes to that shareholder agreement, and I'm able to share with you the reasons for those changes, but they are not for public consumption, which is why they are on pink papers. So if members do have any questions about those specific details, we will need to clear the room for members of the public to answer them. But I don't think there's anything particularly to get excited about here. They're fairly straightforward changes to the shareholder agreement. All shareholders have to agree them. All shareholders are in support of these. There's nothing controversial in this at all. This is actually for members to note my intention to sign these because there is no real controversial matters, I think, for us to flag here. There was something that was ironed out because all shareholders couldn't agree, but you don't particularly need to know about that because it can't happen if all shareholders don't agree. But that was not of our doing. So I can answer any questions, but just to be aware that if we stray into the pink papers, we will have to clear the room first. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, I want to reiterate what the Chief Executive has said, that the appendices of the report currently under discussion have been marked as exempt under paragraph 3 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. And if any member wishes to discuss these exempt appendices, we will need to vote to go into a closed session. And we'll take, first of all, questions regarding the public report. And after addressing those, I will ask if there are any questions that would require us to enter a closed session. So first of all, are there any questions on this report, on the public-facing report? That is the report that is not on the pink papers. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Kennedy.
Yeah, kind of question about not the pink paper, but just in the interest of openness and accountability, could it please be explained in plain English what the Local Government Act exemption is and why we would rely on that?
So the exemption relates to information which is confidential for one reason or another. This is about the commercial confidentiality of the shareholder agreements, because of course Ubico has to tender for a contract with us. It's a fully owned company, but that contract is up for renewal in a couple of years. So this could be perceived as an advantage to any competitors. So there's a very good reason why that's excluded, but there is provision under the Local Government Act for members to have privy to that privileged information which cannot be released in public because of that commercial confidentiality. So there are other reasons that you can exclude things from public discussion, but in this particular case, that's the reason, if that helps.
So thank you. First of all, any other questions apart from Councillor Kennedy's on the public-facing report? Thank you. Are there any questions regarding the information in the exempt appendices? Those are the appendices on the pink papers. I see none. So I'm going to read out the decision now. The Council resolves to note the proposed revisions to the Ubico shareholder agreement as set out in this report. And I think we have a proposer, Councillor Turner. Would you like to formally propose?
Thank you, Chair. I don't think there's a great deal to say. I'm not sure the public are missing out much. There's some important tidying up in this to make sure that it reflects the current situation, and I commend it to members tonight.
Thank you. And we have a seconder, Councillor Watson. Do you wish to speak now or speak later? Not even speak later? No, thank you very much. Can I open it up for debate? Is there anybody that wishes to comment or debate on this particular item? And I see no responses. On that basis, can I go to the vote? Unless the proposer specifically wishes to sum up. No, the proposer does not specifically want to sum up. So I'm going to go to the vote. So could I ask you to vote yes, 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for abstain? And again, same reason for the abstention by virtue of a declaration of interest. And apart from that, we have a majority, 46% in favour of the report. And that, my friends and councillors, concludes the business for this evening. Before you go, can I just say on behalf of myself and the Chief Executive, thank you for all of your hard work this year, and to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a peaceful New Year. And I hope that you have a safe journey home, and I look forward to seeing you all next year in 2025. Thank you very much indeed.